If you're a baby boomer, you probably have a fairly clear opinion of what a millennial is like. Now, let me guess, it's probably you're thinking they won't take full-time work if it's available. They opt for part-time work or contract work. They swap and change depending on how they feel. They won't stick at anything, and they're not exactly looking for stability. Baby boomers, on the other hand, reliable. They may have had the one job for most of their working life. Now, that's our perception. I think it's fair to say. But is it reality? How correct are our assumptions? Emily Jaksch is a millennial expert and people and leadership coach and is on the line right now. G'day, Emily.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. First up, are you into the millennial age group?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I'm actually a zennial. I'm on the cusp, so I'm a Gen X. So I just miss out on being classified as a millennial, but I definitely feel a bit of an affinity towards them because I feel like they get a bit of a bad rap and I'd like to change that.
Let's just define, because people get confused. I know we have baby boomers and X and heaven knows what. A millennial is what, someone born since 2000?
So it's someone born between 1981 and 1995, so they're 23 to 37 years of age.
23 to 37?
Correct. Yes, and there is quite a bit of contention around when the generations start and finish.
They always are. I can be a baby boomer if I choose, or in other definitions I can say I'm too young. Just. So it sort of depends. Anyway, look, from what we're saying, here I am, and for the sake of this I'll say I'm a baby boomer, even though I'm on the cusp. Are we correct in our assumptions about millennials?
Well, I don't think we are. I think that a lot of it is media hype and really stereotyping. I think that millennial bashing has become a bit of a sport, not just in Australia but globally, which is quite sad and it's very divisive and I don't think it's very helpful. And I'd really like to change the narrative because I don't think it's doing anyone any good.
But it is true that younger people, and even younger than the millennials, in other words, those that are now teenagers, are less likely to stay in jobs for a longer period of time, aren't they?
That's correct, but I think that it's around the changing working environment and the economic conditions that we live in now. You know, baby boomers had jobs for life, but those types of jobs don't really exist anymore. But according to my study that I conducted recently into millennials in the workplace, they are looking for stability. And for them, that may not mean a job for 10 years, but it definitely means a job for 3 years plus. Unfortunately, due to economic conditions, some of those jobs don't exist anymore, but it's definitely what they're looking for.
Another assumption some may make, and I hear it talked about all the time, is that millennials are also impatient. They want it all now. They're not willing to put in the time and earn the stripes.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a changing dynamic in terms of the workforce and management style. So, you know, in baby boomers' days, people got the promotions who had been there the longest. It wasn't based on your, capability. It was on your seniority. And that's definitely not the way things work in today's workforce. And I think that that's where the disconnect comes.
Rightio. And I do take on board what you're saying about the fact that the workforce has changed or workplace has changed. It'd be very difficult to find a job you get into at 16 or 18 if you do the HSC, which nearly everyone does now, and stay in that particular job till you're 65. That's going to be a very rare thing, isn't it?
It definitely would be. And I would argue that staying in the job for 10, 20 years creates people who are, unhappy and bored. So I think that staying in a job for 3 to 5 years is actually a good thing because I think that when people are highly engaged, they're highly motivated and they deliver better work.
What about the two or the generations, and I'll go even further than millennials and baby boomers, all the generations, with their perceived differences? How easy or difficult is it for them to work together, do you think?
I think it could be very easy, and I think that millennial leaders, according to my study, millennials are managers now, and these are the people who are going to be managing our country very soon. They are definitely going to change the way that we work together. They're much more collaborative in their leadership styles rather than the old baby boomer top-down command and direct mentality. And I think that that's where a lot of the disconnect comes, is that millennials and baby boomers value different things and they express their values differently.
Okay, now when we talk about the I guess, advice that you would give, what advice would you give to a millennial about understanding the mindset maybe of a baby boomer?
I think it's all about communication and understanding that just because somebody's different to you doesn't make it wrong. It just means that they're different. And I think the same goes for baby boomers, that they need to understand that millennials probably have the same values as them, but they just express them differently. And it's all about listening, communication and getting understanding of what people want and what's important to them.
I mean, the term the generation gap has been around since before we even talked about millennials or Gen X or whatever. Do you think, though, that gap is bigger than it would have been historically?
I think the gap comes from the fact that millennials are the first generation to really grow up on social media. No other generation has been tracked, observed and commented on more than millennials, and this whole millennials shaming thing is, as I said, it's kind of a bit of a sport now and it's kind of funny. But I think that this generation's gap has been around forever and ever, and every generation laments the generation that comes after them,
Yeah, that's true.
And says things like, in my day, we didn't do it that way, and,
Well, even the baby boomers, if you listen to pop culture, were ridiculed by the previous generations for their long hair and rock and roll music. So,
Of course. And in fact, baby boomers were the first generation to be called Generation Me or Generation Now.
Yeah.
Because they were perceived to be wanting everything straight away and being really impatient and pushing for change. So I think that this generation gap actually creates a bit of a natural tension that is actually good in some ways. But I think that this particular generation gap is seemingly a lot bigger. And because of social media, I think that millennials are a bit of an easy target. It's pretty easy to pick on them.
Okay, so tell us about what you do as a leadership coach.
Sure. So I work with millennial leaders. That's my passion. I want to create the next generation of millennial leaders, and I run coaching programs and one-on-one coaching. And I also work with older generations in helping them to coach millennials, because that's really what millennials want, is they want coaching. My research found that they prefer face-to-face communication, and they want on-the-job training and coaching. And I think that that's where we can really make a difference. And I believe that they're going to really improve workplaces because of their collaborative working styles. And we're going to just really see some massive shifts in the way that we do business, which I think is great.
Okay, Emily, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.